Hello, my name is Chris Sanders, and I would just like to share with you my story, my testimony that happened to me. Just start from the beginning. I was born in Pecos, Texas, back in 1968, and my dad left my mom shortly after that, and my mom ended up raising me and my sisters until I was approximately in the fourth grade. In the fourth grade, my mom remarried. She married a man. He's a pretty good man, but had a had quite the drinking problem. He liked to drink a lot, and they fought a lot. And I was raised this way, and I learned to despise alcohol. It really, it really did hurt me, as a child, and I really despised it. But by the time I was 15, I found myself sneaking out of beer, and going and drinking it, and kind of liking the way it made me feel, So I got to drinking a lot more. By the time I was 16, I experimented with some drugs. I got to smoking marijuana, and throughout the next few years, it just got worse. Everything just spiraled worse and worse, and I was getting pretty much out of control, and by the time I was about 18, I got a job offer to move out to West Texas and start farming for my brother-in-law. My sister got married by now, and I told my girlfriend at the time, I said, "I'll see you later, I'm moving to West Texas." And she said, "Well, not without me, you're not." So she loaded up her stuff, and we moved out here. And about a week later, I said, "Well, if we're going to live together, let's just get married." And we went to the Justice of the Peace, and we got married, and it was 8/8/88. And even God was with me back then and gave me a date I could remember. But the drugs kind of calmed down in my life. I continued to smoke pot, but I began to drink quite frequently. And throughout the years, I got where I drank more and more and more. And I got where my drinking had completely taken over my life, and I was no longer in charge of what I was doing. I don't feel, I turned into a pretty bad alcoholic. I drank daily. I preferred to drink half a gallon of whiskey. Wouldn't drink the whole thing, but I'd drink about half of it a day. And that and quite a bit of beer to go with it. Smoked weed daily, 20-something years. It was about 3 years ago, a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving 2009, my wife had had enough. She got to the point where she was going to divorce me, and she was leaving, and by this time I had two boys. One was 21, one was 18, and I had a daughter who was about 7 years old at the time. And my wife was going to leave, and she was going to take my daughter. My boys were already out of the house, and I found my life at a very low spot. I couldn't imagine anybody else raising my daughter. I felt like that I would probably just end up in a gutter somewhere drinking that bottle of whiskey, and that's all I would have is me and the nastiness that went with it, and the alcohol. And I decided it was time to make a change in my life before my life was completely destroyed. I remember writing my wife a letter that night, and I actually have it right here. It says, "I'm sorry, I don't want to fight. I love you very much. I will be sober tonight, and that's where I start. Please be there with me. It looks like that. I don't know if you can see it or not. She flipped it over and she said, "I'm sorry it's come to this. I don't want to fight either. This is either the end or the beginning. I hope it's the beginning. I love you, Christopher. I'll be there." Well, guys, I was ready to make some changes, but I was in a real battle. I was controlled heavily by the drinking and the pot smoking, and I thought that's all my life was about. And but I made it. I made it sober. I made it for the next month or so, not drinking. I only drank a couple of times and didn't enjoy it very much when I did. And I started going to church with my wife, and man, that the sermons at my church that were well, my church is in Hale Center. It's called Western Heritage Fellowship, and the sermons that Robert Malcolm were preaching were coming, and they were sticking me straight in the heart, man. The conviction was something else, and but I was mostly just going to church just to try to rekindle my relationship with my wife somehow. Try to get some brownie points or something, you know. Try to make her think I was doing better or something, you know. And but truly, I was just going through the motions. Around late January 2010, I got invited to a men's group that was meeting out in the country, and there was some friends of mine, you know. They called themselves Christians, you know, and they were meeting, and they were going to do some praying together and studying the Bible. And I really didn't want to go. I didn't think there was anything to being a Christian. I didn't think it was for me. I thought most Christians I'd ever met were hypocrites. I tried to go to a church or something, and I felt like they just judged me right away and said, "Oh man, look at that," you know. And I didn't feel comfortable at all, and I mostly just left anywhere that I came to. And but I couldn't, for some reason I didn't find no to be my answer for this group, and so I went anyway. And it was about the second or third meeting, I believe I said my first real prayer in my life, because I was struggling with trying not to drink, because all I did was just consume my mind. All I did was think about when I was going to get to drink next, or when I was going to go do drugs or whatever. And at that particular meeting, I remember saying a little prayer, something like, I said, "God, I need your help." I said, "If you're real, please help me." I said, "I'm just lost and I don't know what to do." And I believe it was about a week later, I came to the meeting again. And at this meeting, we decided that we were going to go home and read Romans out of the Bible. And I didn't even have a Bible. And a friend of mine in the group, he said, "I have a Bible." He said, "I'll loan it to you." He said, "It's an NLT version." He said, well, I had told him that I couldn't really understand the Bible, and that's why he loaned me the Bible, because he said it was easy to read. And on the way home from that meeting that night, it was kind of late, about 9 or 10 o'clock, God did something very special in my life. He opened my eyes and just my mind to see this world in a different way, you know, in a way I'd never seen it before. For one thing, he showed me that my wife was a gift from him, and that can't really explain all the different ways that my mind and my heart changed that day, but something very special happened to me. I remember going home that night, and I woke up my wife. She'd already gone to bed, and I told her, I said, "Do you realize that you are a gift from God?" And she thought I was drinking again. She's like, "Just go to bed." She says, "I don't know what you're doing." And at that point, I went to bed, and the next Sunday at church, man, I just felt different. And I went home, and I went to church, and at that always have a little testimony period, and I stood up and I told everybody, I said, "You're not going to believe this, but Jesus has entered my heart." And everybody congratulated me and patted me on the back and thought, "Well, that's good for you, Chris. That's real good." And well, it was about less than a week later or so, I decided to open that Bible up and try to read Romans before we had our next meeting, and I was going to try to find something that we could talk about in our meeting. And guys, I made it all the way to Romans 8 before I got my verdict from God. And in Romans 8, it talks about those that are controlled by their sinful nature think about sinful things, and those that are controlled by the Spirit of God think about things that please God. And right then and there, I knew that God did not live inside of me, because all I had was very simple things on my mind. All I thought about was when I was going to drink again, when I was going to go buy me some new pornography or whatever, and it was just terrible what was in my head. The thoughts in my head were terribly simple. And I heard from God from the first time right at this point, and he told me, he said, "Chris, you're a liar." He said, "You don't know me." He said, "You never have, and you're going straight to hell, and there's nothing you can do about it." Well, guys, I just thought Jesus had entered my heart a week before this, and now God's telling me that I'm going to hell, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I had made some confessions in churches before. I'd said the sinner's prayer or whatever, and apparently I needed to say it, and I needed to believe it and make it what I based my life on, and I hadn't done that. And I decided to continue reading that Bible. Finished Romans, and at the end of Romans, I said, "Well, I'm going to see what Jesus has to say about all this," because I noticed that he'd spoken those red letters in the New Testament, and I thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and read this book, and I'm going to see what God has to, or see what Jesus has to say about all this, because after all, I believe God gave me this Bible as an instruction booklet, and 42 years into this life, and I haven't read any of it, so I decided I would see what he has to say. And at that point, I got to reading. I started right there in Matthew, and I got to reading day and night. I just got entranced by reading the Bible. I farm, and I'll be driving the tractor, and we have GPS on the tractor that steers the tractor for you, and I was just reading my Bible all day, and I come home and read it at night, and I'd get up in the morning and I'd be reading it. I just couldn't put it down. I started to come to the point in my life where I thought, man, if we all did the things that Jesus wants us to do, this world would be such a beautiful, wonderful place, that there wouldn't everybody be watching out for each other and taking care of each other, and it would just be so amazing, and I just started to fall in love with him. I was just mesmerized by him. I wanted to be with him. I wanted to somehow hook up with him and travel those dusty roads with him, and just maybe he would give me a little job, like carry his bag or something. I didn't want a big job, but I just wanted to help in some way maybe he would let me have a little little job in His kingdom, you know. And I started making some real choices in my life. I started putting some things behind me and deciding God's way was much better than my way. There was a real testing period that I went through that really, you know, the way I would describe it is that God had me to put Him first in my life, you know, where I'd never done that before. And I was making a very good effort at it, you know, but I was lost, you know. I was a lost person. And that's when it happened to me. It was April the 14th, 2010. I've been reading my Bible for a couple, 2 or 3 months, just day and night. At 3:04 p.m. in the afternoon, I was driving my tractor. My tractor was driving me, and God showed up, guys. And best way I can describe it is, first of all, I was like, it felt like I was dunked in ice water, and I couldn't even breathe anymore. And the next thing I know, I'm maybe out of my body or something, and in the presence of God, which I didn't see anything. And I felt like I was just face down and couldn't look at Him. And the first thing, well, I remember thinking, oh man, that tractor's going to crash because I'm not there no more. But later realized that God had stopped time to have a meeting with me, and the time as we know it wasn't going on. I was in a different time zone or something. I don't know. I was on God's time now. And the first thing he said to me was that He was there to answer some prayers, which I really didn't even understand what He meant by that until later on. I kind of understood better that my wife had been just crying out to God for me. You know, she had just come to the end of her rope, you know, and she was just crying that God would that He would do something with me. And I also found out I had some other people praying for me, my mother, my grandmother, some of my wife's friends, and others out there, I'm sure. But the next thing He did was He actually showed me an angel that He had sent me, and this angel was just kind of well, I'll tell you, it was about 4 or 5 days before I got saved. This was right in the Easter season, and it was about 2 days before Easter. And I found myself in a plant store in Plainview, Texas, and I was going to buy an Easter lily for the church. And when I was at the plant store, there was this black man standing there, and he was looking at some plants, and I wanted to walk in front of him because there was only one way to go. And I told him, I said, "Excuse me," and he said something to the effect of that I was blessed eternally or something like that. And God showed me that was actually one of His holy angels that was sent down here for whatever reason, I don't know. But you know, I hold that dear in my heart. You know, it was an amazing thing. And the next thing God did was He asked me to confess my sins, and right away I knew that He knew everything about me. He knew everything I'd done, all the very worst and everything I'd done. I mean, there was nothing that was hidden from Him. And I proceeded to confess my sins. Just I believe I confessed them for 30 to 45 minutes, just everything all the way back to being a baby, as well as I could remember. And I know by no way got them all, but I got most of the worst ones, I'll guarantee you that. And when I was done, He asked me if I accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Savior, and I told Him I did. And at that point, it was like He put me back in my tractor. I was now back in my tractor, back into this world, or however you want to explain it. And whenever he put me back in my tractor, it was like this big set of hands came out of heaven like this, and He just reached inside of my chest and like He cupped my heart. And when He did, He blew real light, just real light like that. And when he did, he just cleaned me out, guys. He forgave me of all my sins. He cleaned me out of all my addictions that I had, and all the hurts that I had from my childhood, growing up and everything. He cleaned it all out. He made me brand new out there and gave me a fresh, brand new start out there. And he didn't just leave me empty by cleaning me all out, because all I had was nasty in me. He started to fill himself. He started to fill me with himself. He started to pour his Holy Spirit into me, and he just made me new. He just gave me his love, his joy. I mean, you can't imagine the wonderful, beautiful things that I traded out in the field that day for. I traded all of my nasty junk for all his beautiful, wonderful things that he has. It was totally amazing. I'm blown away to this day even thinking about it. And I remember going home that night, and my boys were actually at the house. My wife was there, my daughter was there, and I sat them all down in my living room, and I said, we're going to have a family meeting today. I got something I want to tell y'all. And I told them, I said, you're not going to believe this, but I gave my life to the Lord today, and I'm not ever going to be the same again. And let me tell you, I got laughed out of my living room. They said, "Oh, you'll be drunk by the weekend. You're just filling us full of junk." I said, "No, I said, God had moved in. He lives inside of me now. I said, I'm no longer on my own. I said, I've got a helper in me now. The best way I could describe it, But they all just blew me off, and in ways I thought, well, man, I thought I'd flipped out or something, I've never heard anything like this happening to anybody. And I'll tell you how long it took me to mess things up, and that was the very next day. The very next day, I remember just being just on top of the world, just feeling better than I ever felt in my life. But as being a pothead as long as I had been, I got my weed out, and I took one hit of that weed, and whenever I did, God just withdrew His Spirit from me. He just took it from me, and I was right back in the muck that I was in the day before. He just took everything that He did out in the field from me, and He spoke to me. He said, if you're gonna walk like that, then I'm not gonna walk with you. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? I've made a mess out of what God has done for me, and really just broke my heart. I just a piece of me died, and I don't know how to describe it any better than I just couldn't imagine what I'd done, and I decided that day I was going to make a real choice in my life, and at that point I proceeded to go get everything I had in my possession that I thought was displeasing to God, my paraphernalia, my alcohol, my pornography, everything I had, and everything. I even cleaned out the video library in the living room, and everything I thought that wasn't pleasing to God, everything I had, and I put it in a box. And I remember writing a note to the devil, and I said, devil, I said, I done walked with you long enough. I said, I don't want any more part of what you have for me. I said, here's your stuff. I said, I'm giving it back, and I don't want anything to do with it. And I put all this in a big box, and I live out in the country, and we got a big deep burn hole in our backyard where we burn our trash, and I took it out there and I dropped it down there. I said, here's your stuff back, devil. I said, I got nothing. I don't want anything to do with it. I remember being torn up, man, just devastated over what I'd done. I couldn't believe what I had done, and I've met a lot of people that claim to be Christians that live just like I did, and I didn't think that you had to be different. I thought it was just something you said, but God wanted something a lot more for me. He wanted me to be holy, as I learned later reading His Word, and that doesn't mean living to suit your flesh, it means living for Him. And something else happened to me that very day. I went to bed that night, and in the middle of the night I woke up, and I was like throwing up like that, you know. I mean, it was about to blow everywhere. And I got up out of bed and I ran toward the bathroom. And whenever I did, I remember saying a little prayer on the way. I said something like, just God help me, please, you know. And whenever I did, he met me in my bathroom again. And I remember he spoke to me. I mean, he took like the throw up away and it like disappeared when I got in there. And he said, Chris, he said, if you're going to walk with me, then I'm going to walk with you. And for the next 3 to 4 weeks, I just started getting filled with the Holy Spirit just daily. I mean, I was getting about 2 hours of sleep a night. The Lord would just pour it into me while I was asleep. I'd wake up and I'd be reading His Word, you know. I couldn't put His Bible down. I mean, it was just so alive and so filling my soul. I mean, it was just so totally amazing. It was just crazy, you know. But after 2 weeks after I got saved, I got the opportunity to get baptized at my church, and also got the opportunity to baptize my daughter right after my baptism. It was a real blessing. And it was about almost the 1st of July, I felt the Lord urge me to ask my wife to marry me again right there in church in the testimony time. And I got down on a knee right there in church in front of everybody, and I asked her if she would marry me again, and she said yes. You know, I mean, God restored our marriage. We've never been so close in all of our marriage, and we're like newlyweds after 24 years. She's my best friend in the world now. I wouldn't. Before I got saved, we went 2 or 3 years without speaking to each other because of my problems had gotten so bad. But now we're just like the best buddies. We just hang out and just tell each other everything. It's the most amazing thing, you know. When I go to Walmart or something and I see these old people, 80, 90 years old, and they're still holding hands and smiling at each other, I know why now, because they have the Lord in their life, and it's a very, very special thing, you know. And, guys, I've surrendered anything in my life to God that He wants me to surrender. I'm serving Him wherever I can. I go to prison. I run a Celebrate Recovery class at church. I'm very big in my church now. I mean, I love to go to church. I love to give everybody a hug and make them feel welcome, and just let them experience God's love coming out of me, you know. And I think that's what God wants me to do, is to love everybody like He does. And I'm just trying my best to be a good Christian and honor God in all that I do. And I just wanted to share with everybody out there and just let them know what had happened to me, and just challenge them to give it all to God, and to just surrender to the Lord, and see what happens, because it's the most blessed, amazing thing that you can ever imagine whenever God moves inside of you, and just it's the most amazing comforter you can imagine. Well, guys, I'm sure that's about all y'all want to hear. Like I said, my name was Chris Sanders. I live in Cotton Center, Texas. If anybody wants to contact me or hear any more, I'll be glad to share with anybody about all that's happened to me. Thank you.